The flamboyant leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters is exploring a new tactic. Well, in a stunning revelation, Julius Malema has said that the Economic Freedom Fighters is in talks with the Democratic Alliance over a mass resignation from Parliament. While the reasoning is an old one, the accusations go back to the Nkandla ruling. Malema believes that President Jacob Zuma failed to protect, uphold and respect the Constitution and that the National Assembly failed to hold him accountable. In an exclusive interview with the SABC, Malema accepted that he was in talks with members of the Democratic Alliance to convince them to resign and thereby forcing the dissolution of the Parliament. Let's listen in to what the Economic Freedom Fighters leader said in an exclusive interview with the SABC.
I went to the leader of the DA and said to the DA leader, if we combine the EFF numbers and the DA numbers and we resign from Parliament, that thing is no longer properly constituted a Parliament. But that strategy will still come. If we're still weighing our options, we're still fighting from within, and maybe at the end of everything else, we may come to a conclusion that perhaps we must resign, and then once Parliament doesn't reach its quorum as prescribed in the Constitution, then we can approach the Constitutional Court to go and instruct the Speaker to dissolve Parliament.
And joining us for more on this story is the Democratic Alliance's James Salva, who is the chairperson of the Federal Executive. Mr. Salva, thank you so much for joining us right here on Anand 7. Now, firstly, can you indeed confirm that you are in discussions with the Economic Freedom Fighters, as claimed by Julius Malema, over this entire mass resignation of Parliament?
No, we're not in formal discussions with the EFF. It is true that Mr. Malema mentioned to Mr. Maimane towards the end of last year that was an idea that he was thinking of, but we certainly haven't engaged on the topic at all. And in our view, it would in any event be not a good idea to withdraw from Parliament for two reasons. First of all, because if a party does not take up its seats in Parliament, all that happens is that those seats are distributed amongst the other parties in the National Assembly. And secondly, because we were elected on a ticket to represent our voters in the National Assembly, and we have work to do on their behalf, and to withdraw from Parliament would be to break their faith that they had in us.
Now, has the Economic Freedom Fighters in some sort of way made any proposal with regards to these mass resignation, as you're mentioning yourself that you haven't actually discussed this matter in depth with the party?
No, as I said, the matter was raised with Mr. Maimane, but wasn't taken any further. And certainly if we are to engage in talks, we would certainly be open to do that. We talk with the EFF fairly regularly. But as I say, I don't think one would really do this with an empty mind. One would need to consider what the implications would be, because I don't think it would have the effect of dissolving Parliament. It may just make the ANC stronger.
Now, also in the same interview with the SABC that Malema had, stating that the Democratic Alliance serves the interest of the whites. What's your reaction on this?
Well, we certainly don't have the interests of whites at heart. I mean, we represent all South Africans, and our membership and our support base reflects that. And we are the most non-racial South African party represented in Parliament. We're very proud of it.
Also, thank you so much for joining us right here on Anand 7, and thank you for your opinion on that matter. Also joining us on the phone line is the constitutional law expert, Mr. Marius. Also, thank you so much for joining us right here on Anand 7. Now, Julius Malema says that he's planning to resign, or rather is planning a large mass resignation from Parliament, with the Economic Freedom Fighters MPs and Democratic Alliance MPs forcing the dissolution of Parliament. How do you see the statement from the constitutional viewpoint?
Could you just repeat the question?
Well, with regards to the latest utterances by Julius Malema planning a mass resignation together with the Democratic Alliance that would actually force the dissolution of Parliament, how do you see the statement in the constitutional viewpoint?
Well, it is often Malema has uttered another hollow threat. Because what will happen if the opposition parties clear out and they resign, you'll find exactly the same position as we saw with the State of the Nation address. The government, the majority party, will simply go on. It will make a mockery of our parliament, of course, but the position is simply this: the opposition party has elected so many seats in government. Now they walk out. If the parties, the EFF and the DA, want to nominate and appoint new members, they can do that. They can fill up their ranks. But it won't cripple Parliament itself. It will make Parliament very, very a mockery. The same scene we saw with the State of the Nation. I mean, it's pathetic, but it won't create a crisis. It would be entirely different if the majority party resigns. Then Parliament cannot act with the majority, and then one could argue a general election would be necessary. Not now if the opposition parties walk out, which I'm sure they won't do with the ELF, but you'll have the sorry state of affairs we saw at the time of the State of the Nation.
And now, talking of numbers, together the Economic Freedom Fighters and DA together don't even stack up the dissolution for the National Assembly, but yet Malema yesterday said that they would go to the Concourt. How valid is the argument of dissolving the National Assembly?
No. You see, we must respect. It's a fundamental principle of the Constitution, the separation of powers. The Concourt can decide on certain procedures, the way they did all certain powers, the way they did it with the powers of the public protector. That they can do. They can even judge on the legality and the constitutionality of the president's actions, what they did. But they cannot interfere in the sphere of Parliament itself, because that would be encroaching on the separation of powers principle, which is basic to our constitutional setup.
Also, thank you so much for speaking to us right here on 897. Thank you for that professional opinion. Well, that was the constitutional legal expert. And before that, we had the Democratic Alliance's James Salfe speaking more on Malema's latest utterances.